Welcome to the program. I'm Okbayemi Owosheni. Cash held outside Nigeria's banking system has declined to its lowest level in 7 months in June 2026, reflecting a gradual return of physical currency to deposit money banks amid the CBN's efforts to deepen digital payment. The latest money and credit statistics released by the CBN show that currency outside banks fell to 4.92 trillion naira in June from 5.19 trillion naira in May 2026. Now, the June figures represent the lowest level since November 2025, when currency outside banks stood at 4.91 trillion naira. The decline comes as the Apex Bank continues to promote electronic payment and financial inclusion as part of effort to reduce the economy's dependence on cash transactions. Now, Brazil has filed a request seeking a World Trade Organization consultation over tariffs imposed by the United States on several products, according to the Foreign Ministry. President Donald Trump's administration has imposed 2 rounds of tariffs on Brazil this month, which left-wing President and re-election candidate Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has denounced as election interference. Brazil took the same step in 2025 when Washington imposed 50% tariffs in retaliation for the coup-related trial that sent former president to prison. We'll now take a break here, but when Money Matters return, we'll be discussing the United States imposing new tariff on Nigeria imports over forced labor produced goods. I'll bring you details of this after this break. Welcome back. Now, the United States has imposed a 12.5% tariff on imports from Nigeria over the country's failure to prohibit and effectively enforce a ban on goods produced with forced labor. The announcement was made by the Office of the United States Trade Representative, who said the measure targets countries that have not implemented or enforced restrictions on imports linked to forced labor. Unfortunately, Nigeria falls among 6 affected countries. Others are India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Mexico, and the United Kingdom. Nigeria, however, faces a higher tariff of 12.5%, while other countries were subjected to a 10% rate. Now, so what does this decision really mean for Nigerian businesses, exporters, and the wider economy? And what does it tell us about the changing landscape of global trade? To help us unpack these issues, I'm joined by the Chief Executive Officer of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Thank you for joining me on the program, Dr. Muda. Now, what do you make of this old tariff imposed on Nigeria now by Donald Trump?
Well, this is a continuation of the protectionist tendencies of the United States under President Trump. You recall that in April last year, he imposed wide-ranging tariffs on imports into the United States on the day he called Liberation Day. And it was far-reaching. It affected many economies, including Nigeria. But the Supreme Court of the United States early this year, nullified those imposition of tariffs. So what President Trump has done now is to reintroduce those tariffs under a new legislation, alleging forced labor, that countries that have imported goods from countries where forced labor is being used to produce are the ones being targeted. So I think it's just a ploy or a strategy to replace the reciprocal tariff, which was nullified by the Supreme Court, with a new tariff now, being now framed as imports from countries where forced labor has been used to produce. So the summary of it is, this is about protectionism. Essentially, that is what it is. And of course, it will affect countries depending on their exposure to the United States as far as the export is concerned.
All right, now I went through your publication regarding this issue, and I saw that you argued that the economic impact of this 12.5% tariff now on Nigeria is likely to be modest because crude oil and LNG that are dominant export to the US are exempt. So if is there a danger now that the public is overestimating the significance of this announcement on Nigeria?
Yes, the impact on Nigeria, of course, will be very limited because the tariff policy, which was announced by the United States, exempted some category of products. It exempted oil and gas, it exempted fertilizer, anything that has to do with energy or even some agricultural products were also exempted. And because over 80% of our exports to the United States is actually oil and gas. So that means that over 80% of what we export to the United States have been exempted already. So our exposure, to this new tariff is just covering about 15 to 20% of exports to the United States. So to that extent, the impact on our trade balances, the impact on our export penetration to the United States will be very minimal by virtue of the structure of our exports, to the United States.
All right, now I understand that this is very minimal, but then even if the immediate microeconomic impact is limited, does this tariff send a worrying signal about Nigeria's reputation in global trade, particularly when it is linked to allegations around forced labor and supply chain standards?
Well, these are the level of allegations. These things were announced. There was no evidence provided. You see, the overriding objective actually of the United States under its current president is protectionism. The whole idea is to ensure that the manufacturing firms in the United States are protected because they are increasingly becoming uncompetitive. These allegations are not proven in most of the cases. That is not to say that as a country we should not watch out for the possibilities of this. But I can tell you that the overall objective of this is to substitute this new policy for the reciprocal tariff that was nullified by the United States Supreme Court. So now the US government has now invoked the Trade Act, which created a window, to penalize countries that import from countries that use forced labor. Most of our imports come from China, from India, even some from United States. So we need to see the evidence actually in order for us to be able to accept fully that really we are guilty of this allegation.
What options now do you think the Nigerian government has regarding this? Because it's a really big allegation, if you ask me. So what position now should the government take regarding this allegation?
Well, there has to be engagement with the U.S. authorities. For the 20% of product that may be affected, I think it makes sense to also engage with the United States to see how we can get around it and to assure the United States authority that in the spirit of good economic and trade relations, these things should be reviewed. And we also import a lot from the United States. United States, the trade surplus, with United States is actually in favor of the United States. So the trade relationship between us is good, it's robust, although not so big. United States is about number 5 in terms of export destination for Nigeria. But there has to be engagement first to validate or otherwise the allegation of forced labor that has been leveled against countries from where we import. Secondly, to protect the interests of some of our smaller exporters, that export things that are not oil and gas related, which may be liable for this tariff, because that may affect their competitiveness. So the engagement is in order to have with the trade representatives or the relevant agencies of the United States.
Well, could this decision now have implications beyond the United States? Do you think there is a risk that other major trading partners may begin to scrutinize Nigeria's supply chains and labor practices more closely, potentially affecting Nigeria's access to other export markets?
No, no, not at all. I mean, it's very clear to practically everybody that this is just a strategy to protect the US manufacturers. It's not as if there are really serious fundamental forced labor issues. Just as I said, these things have not been proven. And I'm not sure we have even been given any opportunity to defend this allegation. And this is not just only about Nigeria. We are talking about almost 60 trading partners of the United States. So it's not peculiar to us, and it's a sweeping allegation just to ensure that because of the setback that has been caused by the nullification by the Supreme Court of the reciprocal tariff, this is something just to substitute or to replace it, essentially. So other countries also understand that this is just a protectionist strategy. It's not as if there is any serious substance in the allegation to warrant, what has been claimed by the United States.
One of the other things you noted in the publication is that non-oil exporters, especially in agriculture and manufacturing, could be affected. Now, at a time when Nigeria is trying to transition and diversify away from oil, now, do you think this could in any way affect Nigeria's transitioning?
No, no, certainly not. What we need for transitioning is to improve our export competitiveness, is to improve our production environment, is to address the issue of cost of production, cost of credit, power cost, logistics cost. I think those are the bigger issues as far as export competitiveness is concerned, as far as even improving our balance of trade is concerned. So the issues are mainly structural. Of course, some exporters will be affected by this. But in terms of percentage and in terms of the likely impact, it's not likely to be that significant as to be a major issue as far as our export diversification is concerned. What is needed the most to promote diversification is to address all the structural constraints to production, all the structural constraints to export competitiveness, power, cost of credit, logistics, the port issues, and so on and so forth. Those are issues of bigger priority.
Okay, now, I think one other thing that really struck me is the fact that you pointed to AFCTA and export diversification, and you also mentioned it now. But given the current realities facing Nigerian manufacturers, from infrastructure deficit, high cost of production, which is something that manufacturers complain about a lot in Nigeria, will you say we are truly positioned now as a country to seize all of those opportunities?
Well, we still have major issues of productivity in the Nigerian economy. That is why if you look, for instance, at the AGOA opportunity that we had for over 20 years, we couldn't take much opportunity of it. We couldn't improve our exports to the United States because AGOA gave, a very liberal window for African countries to export to the United States. But we couldn't take advantage of it because of competitiveness issues. Only recently, the Chinese government also has created a liberal window for imports into their country from many African countries, including Nigeria, free of duty. Even that, we are yet to take full advantage. So it is important that we strengthen our competitiveness. Even the AFCFTA, if we are not careful, we may also fall into the same situation. Because if you are competing with countries like Morocco, like Egypt, like South Africa, like Algeria, in the continental markets, and these are countries that have very solid infrastructure. Their competitiveness level is extremely high, their logistics is sound. Productivity in those economies are much higher. So if we are not careful, even within the context of the African continent and the African continental free trade area, we may also have challenges. So that is why we continue to emphasize the need for us to ensure that we provide adequate power, for manufacturers, improve access to credit, ensure that we have patient capital, that is long-term fund, ensure that we have lower cost of fund, possibly single digit, ensure that we improve on our logistics, our railway system, our networks in terms of waterways, railways, and road networks. All of these things are critical to ease the cost of logistics. So structural issues, again, are very critical. The regulatory environment is important. So all of these things will help to position Nigeria, to be a lot more competitive, to take advantage of some of these other trade opportunities, and more importantly, to take advantage of the ALCFTA opportunities that is emerging.
Now, let's talk about global trade now, because protectionism is something you've mentioned often now during the course of this interview. Do you think we are moving into an era where protectionism will become the new order of the day, like the US now?
Yeah, that is becoming the new order of the day. It's becoming the rule. Many countries are protecting their industries. I mean, if United States, which is the largest economy, globally, is taking this steps to protect its own industries. I mean, what do you expect of other countries? A lot of countries are also taking a cue. People are, walking away from globalization and doing more of protectionist policies. So we are seeing a bit of that even in Europe, in some countries in Asia, even within Africa. So it's becoming the norm now to ensure that we protect, or countries protect their industries. So we are seeing a reversal of the regime of globalization to a regime of what they call de-globalization. That's a reversal of globalization. So that is where we are now. So that is why it's important, even for Nigeria itself, to also begin to think of how it can protect its own industries, so that we don't expose our industries to competition that they may not be able to survive, especially competition of products from some of these Asian countries.
Well, now, let's step back from this specific tariff. What does this episode tell us about Nigeria's place in the global economy? Will you say we are adapting quickly enough now to a world where trade is increasingly being shaped by geopolitics, sustainability, and even supply chain standards?
Well, we are adapting, but we are still very slow.
Huh.
Because to take advantage of trade, you must be able to compete with respect to price and with respect to quality. And also with respect to your logistics, because that will help the speed at which you can deliver to your customers, whether locally or abroad. We still have a lot of challenges around that. So I'm not sure that we are adapting well enough. Our level of value addition is still very, very low. All the things that we need to produce competitively, we are still weak on many of those fundamental conditions. So our adaptation is extremely very slow, and I think we need to do a lot more to ensure that we don't turn Nigeria into a market destination. We want Nigeria to be an investment destination where people will come here and invest because they believe they can produce competitively, and sell their products competitively within the country and outside the country.
All right, now, what exactly do you think needs to be done by the Nigerian government and even policymakers now to protect Nigerian businesses, restore investor confidence, and prevent this issue from escalating into a wider trade problem?
Well, in terms of protecting Nigerian industries, we need to look at our trade policy. That's the tariff policy.
Yeah.
We need to have some measure of protectionist tariff policies. Just the same way as Trump is doing, President Trump, has been using tariff instruments a great deal to protect American companies. So we should also be doing that for Nigerian companies. A bit of that is already being done, because if you look at our fiscal policy document, there are quite a number of protectionist measures under the import adjustment tax. There's a column which is referred to as import adjustment tax, is to protect
Okay.
domestic industries. But more importantly, is to ensure that we accelerate our power sector reform, our energy sector reform, so that we're able to deliver power to those who are producing and even for those who are in services. Because without adequate power, it is very, very difficult to compete as far as production is concerned. And we also need to focus a lot more on development finance because at an interest rate of 30% and above, it is very difficult for any enterprise to take facility at that rate and be able to compete, whether locally or even abroad. So we need to look at issues of financing to ensure that we have a lot more patient capital, that's long-term funds, and we have credit facilities that are cheaper, maximum maybe 10%. Because all the countries that are making an impact in the global economy and global trade are countries where they have cheaper funds. They have much better government support. They have much better infrastructure. So we need to replicate those conditions here, if you really want to be part of the global supply chain.
All right, so just before I let you go, if we look back 5 years from now, do you think this tariff episode will be remembered as a minor trade adjustment or maybe as a early warning now that Nigeria needed to fundamentally rethink how it participates in global trade?
Well, it is something that should guide future policy. And the fact that we are seeing increasing protectionism, globally,
Yes.
speaks to the fact that we need to begin to do a lot more, to look inwards. We need to do a lot more to ensure value addition. And we need to do a lot more to ensure that we are competitive at the regional level and at the continental level. So that whoever is investing in manufacturing is not just focusing on domestic markets, it should be focusing on the regional market, it should be focusing on the continental market. That is the way to grow an industry. That is the path to rapid industrialization. And all those things that we need to do, some of which I've mentioned, we need to put in place to ensure that we have a much higher level of productivity in the Nigerian manufacturing sector.
All right, Chief Executive Officer of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf, thank you very much for sharing your insights on the program.
Thank you very much, Okbai. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. And that's it on this episode of the program. Many thanks for joining us. I am Okbayemi Owosheni. See you next time.
There are at least 4 to 5 million lives that are saved as a result of being vaccinated, year in and year out. Immunization is one of the most effective, most impactful health interventions in all of human history, and I'd love to tell you why that is and about it. Tens of millions of people, in fact, over the course of human history, hundreds of millions of people died from smallpox. It was a dreaded disease. And in the late 1700s was an amazing breakthrough. A British physician, Jenner, noticed that milkmaids who had been infected not from smallpox, but from a related virus called cowpox, they were pretty immune from getting smallpox. And so he used that observation to, in fact, immunize an 8-year-old boy, James Phipps, using the cowpox virus. And then weeks later, he exposed James Phipps, with of course the permission of his parents, to smallpox, and he didn't get sick from smallpox. And smallpox is a disease we don't have anymore anywhere in the world. And the reason we don't have this disease is because of vaccination. Another disease that's really front and center, big spotlight on trying to eradicate this disease, meaning wipe it off the face of the earth once and for all, just as we've done for smallpox, is polio. I think everybody knows what polio looks like. Paralysis of limbs, long life, disability. Many people die of polio as well. And this means vaccinating, for instance, in Pakistan, in India, in many other countries, huge campaigns that have vaccinated tens of millions of children in short periods of time. We're now at the point where polio has been reduced by over 99% compared with the way polio used to be before we had vaccines. We're so close to ending this. We're so close to the last few cases. We're so close to ending the transmission of this virus. I worked in a hospital in the country of Haiti, in the capital city, in Port-au-Prince. The pediatric ward in that hospital was full of children who had measles, who had diarrhea, who had meningitis, children who had tuberculosis, children who were born with tetanus. And about a third of children who were admitted to that pediatric ward died on a daily basis. And so many of the illnesses that children came in with were illnesses that were completely preventable with vaccination. It was a really important period for me in my training, in my life, to decide to really devote my career to making sure that vaccines were not only developed for diseases for which we didn't have them yet, but also, perhaps more importantly, that the vaccines that we already have are completely accessible, completely available, completely safe and effective for people in every part of the world, no matter what community you're born in. So we've all been living through what has been an enormously difficult couple of years, this pandemic, COVID-19. And one of the things that the world over, I think everybody knows, is the incredible development in rapid time, in frankly unprecedented time, of vaccines that prevent COVID disease. They work against infection and transmission as well. One of the ways that vaccines have gotten into every country around the world is through the COVAX facility. And the COVAX facility is the mechanism to buy vaccines, which is happening on a billions of dose basis, and get them shipped to countries that need these vaccines that can't buy them on their own. There are 92 countries that are benefiting. And when we think about low-income countries, over 80% of the doses that are provided to low-income countries are coming through the COVAX facility. We vaccinate against diseases that are transmissible from person to person. And that means that each of us presents some risk to someone else unless we're protecting ourselves through the use of vaccines. So I really think about vaccination as a social equity issue and a social justice issue. And there's nothing more overwhelming, there's nothing more tragic than a perfectly healthy child who succumbs to an infection that was completely preventable.
It's so far the largest single raid carried out by Nigeria's Economic and Financial Crimes Commission.
We have never seen this kind of industrial scale.
792 suspects arrested.
Their audacity is unrivaled.
The details are chilling and mind-boggling.
We also discovered that some of them were ex-convicts.
This was the height of massive cyber fraud in plain sight.
We decided to bust them.
Sometime in November 2024, Abba Sambo Usman, who heads the Advanced Fee Fraud section of the Lagos 2 Zonal Directorate of the EFCC, received crucial intelligence about a sophisticated cybercrime syndicate led by foreign nationals operating right in the heart of the Nigerian commercial capital, Lagos.
So following that intelligence, I brought it to the attention of my then zonal director, Mr. Michael Wetkas. So he authorized the commencement of surveillance to ascertain the veracity of the information that we received and to develop strategies for essentially combating the threat and executing a successful operation there.
The intelligence would be escalated to the highest level of the organization.
We processed intelligence and we realized it was actionable and proved that the intelligence should be investigated, and we set up our apparatus. Obviously, we monitored their activities for close to 3 weeks through our various tactical and surveillance operational approaches. And we confirmed that these guys were actually there, carrying out nefarious activities in violation of our financial crimes laws.
The intense surveillance would reveal a trove of shocking information.
They recruit their workers online and physically based on recommendation from the people already working with them. They get more other people to come. So once you are put through the recruitment process, which is to first of all test your typing skill and how fast you are in typing. Once you've passed the typing test, that is your speed is what fits into what they want, they recruit you. Once you are recruited, you are moved to the next line. The next line is a place where the supervisors will give you a new identity. At that level, they say, who is your name? And once you tell them your real name, they say, okay, from now henceforth, they give you a name, usually name of a female, and then you answer that name, and then they create a profile for you, and that profile has a lady's picture, beautiful lady, and then you use that particular name they had given you, and then they bump into foreign numbers and you commence communication with your would-be victims.
So it's people, when they employ you, all you have to do, the responsibility is to create fake profiles on dating sites. So they go to dating sites, get pictures of beautiful female or male, it doesn't matter, because the targets can either be male or female, as the case may be. So one is, the responsibility is to open 10 to 15 fake profiles per day. So when they're able to create those fake profiles, then it moves to the next level. They call them the developers. They are the ones that initiate the communication. The communication commences like normal romance relationship. So once they're able to develop that relationship, communication, when there is consistent communication with the victim on the other side, then they begin to introduce like a business idea. They begin to pretend as if they are into a certain type of investment activity, that this is what I'm doing and I'm making profit from it. Thus trying to sell the idea that there is something profitable taking place, that the other party at the other end can partake and make profit too. That is essentially how it takes place. So once that communication has been established and is going on well, the Chinese or the foreign syndicates take over. So it is there, they have dedicated a website where they send or direct the victim for the investment. So once the investment is made, they defraud the person, and then because they have taken over the communication, our Nigerian syndicate members don't have any idea of how much was defrauded or exactly where the money went to, essentially creating a kind of buffer. If they are arrested, then they don't have any information as to actually how the real fraud took place.
In the evening of Tuesday, December 10th, 2024, just weeks after the reception of the intelligence, EFCC personnel in an operation codenamed Eagle Flush launched a surprise raid on the building where the syndicate had been operating from. It's an imposing 7-story complex known as Big Leaf Building on number 7 Oyujolayemi Street, Victoria Island, Lagos. The syndicate had clearly been operating in plain sight.
First of all, we discovered that quite a number of them were foreigners from Asia, from Eastern Europe, from Northern Africa, and their modus operandi is something that was a bit strange or different from the regular Yahoo, activities that we are used to, irregular internet, fraudsters that we are used to. We discovered that these guys came in with a mind of using the identity of Nigerians to perpetrate their crime. And it's mind-boggling that we discovered that about 194 of them, now from various countries. So they formed a syndicate. If it were to be just a group of people from a particular country, that would have followed the normal trend, pattern that we are used to. Now, all these people were able to get themselves together from various continents, and now they are able to create that criminal cell in Nigeria was quite mind-boggling. Another thing that we also discovered was that it's not just only Nigerians Nigeria that they are operating. They are operating in other countries in Africa. They are operating in other parts of Europe. They are also operating in other parts of Asia. So those are things that we were able to discover. And also we discovered that the propensity of their activities being linked to financing of terrorism, that's also another mind-boggling area that we are also looking at.
You look at it, the place was located at a very highbrow area. And if you look at that building at number 7, Oyinjola in Victoria Island, Lagos, you think it's a financial institution, you think it's a bank. So anybody who was recruited in that place was likely to think that he had a very, very profitable and legitimate venture. So most of the Nigerians, that was what they thought they were into, but just to later discover that it was something else.
I am surprised in the sense that they have the audacity to set up such a big cybercrime operation in the heart of Victoria Island in Lagos. But the issue of being in plain sight, it is actually not in plain sight. They have taken steps to cover their track that if you don't actually know, you will never know that that is what is happening. Now, in the building that they rented, the fence, they used some metal sheets to cover the whole of the face of the building and painted it black. There is no one walking across the street. You look to the side of the building, you will get an idea of what is happening because it's completely blocked. Now, they have a hostel where they house the Nigerian cyber criminals. They ferry them from that location in buses that have tinted glasses. So they will move them from the hostel, check them into the premises, and then they proceed to their office. Just walking by, anybody casually walking by would never know that that type of criminal activity is taking place. And I think the main reason why people got to know is because they are always looking for new employees. So because people come to take the test, so that's how the word began to go around that this is happening in so place. So it's actually in plain sight, but it's pretty much concealed that the ordinary person on the street will not actually know.
In all, 792 suspects were arrested in Operation Eagle Flush. They include 148 Chinese, 40 Filipinos, 2 Kazakhstanis, 1 Pakistani and 1 Indonesian. The others are Nigerians.
For us to discover that a syndicate of such a large number was operating in an environment, going in and out, I mean foreigners for that matter, every day was a bit of a surprise for me. And nobody alerted us until, we got actionable intelligence by ourselves and we acted on it. So whichever way you look at it, I think it was something that actually got the nation jolted, as it were, and also got us jolted. Because you discover that nowhere has such number of arrests been made
in one single operation.
Our blockchain analysis of the activities revealed that their funding was coming from another fraudulent activity. We discovered that there was one Conti.iv in that particular scheme. It's a foreign scheme. It was done abroad. And then our investigation revealed that in that scheme, they had raked in over $97 million. And then it is from that fund that was sent to a particular wallet. And then in USDT, digital currency. And that money came in, and then it was cashed into fiat currency here in Nigeria. And that was what they used to establish the business in Nigeria.
Most of the funds were received using cryptocurrency. There's a team that worked on that. Despite their best effort, I don't think they will be able to uncover exactly the total amount of funds that were defrauded. What I learned from the informant is that if the team has succeeded in defrauding any victim, a bonus is usually shared. And then if it's the hit is actually big, the bonus will be given to virtually everybody. They are shared in different floors, different wings. So they just share the bonus to them.
Operatives of EFCC combed the entire floors of the complex, retrieving a trove of evidence confirming this was a sophisticated international crime syndicate with elaborate infrastructure in place being used to carry out their crimes.
They've been attacking our telecoms infrastructure. They have their base station. They came with about 2 base stations that we discovered. We have confiscated them, where they can make calls here with to an American line, and you will see they are calling from US. Yeah, you think that call is initiated, is generated from US itself. You know, when you are making an international call, that's a way they think. But with their own, if you call you, do you think they are in US? Yes, we confiscated over about 260 something foreign lines, over 500 Nigerian ATM telecoms card, SIM card, activated, ready to be used.
We saw that they were using over 1,500 desktops to perpetrate this. And we also stumbled on over 400 mobile phones they were using for this. We also discovered that they were using over 3,000 SIM cards. So their modus is, once you get those victims, those numbers were bombed, and then you've started communicating with the numbers, with the people. They start cajoling them into romantic conversations, and then get their attentions. And once you get their attention, you now tell them about this phantom business or investment platform that they offer. And then they ask their victims to register on their platform, which is www.yoto.com. So once you register on that platform, you're already part of them. It's assumed that you are into investment with them and everything. But for you to register on that particular platform, you have to pay some money. It is from $35 upward, $35.50. So you can just imagine bumping like maybe 100 people per day, and maybe even if you end up with about 50 or 20 per day, and you are you raise that kind of registration fee, it's a lot of money over time. So, and that was their modus operandi. They were using impersonation, particularly to achieve what they were doing. And then they were also changing their location through an advanced VPN technology, where they can choose to tell you they are communicating with you from London, from Germany, from Italy, or wherever. It is a deeper look that you now discover that all these communications are coming from Nigeria, because the IP addresses are indicating Nigeria, thereby destroying the image of this country, damaging our image internationally.
They have some foreign females whose pictures that they use in the building. If there is a need to chat with the victims, those females are there whose pictures have been used in the profile. there is a phone line that is linked to each desktop computer that is used in the fraudulent activity that they can use to direct the communication. They have studios set up with ring lights inside that gives the proper ambience or vibe, as we may say in our street slang, that this lady is real, that you are talking to a person who is real. And there are also formats that we have encountered within the building, directing people how to start the communication, what name to use, which county to pretend that you are from, in order to win the confidence of the victim that is on the other side. It's really organized. One doesn't need to have any background in cybercrime or this street criminality for one to be able to succeed. All one has to do is to follow those instructions. There is day 1, this is what you tell him. Day 2, this is what you tell. Day 3, very much organized. Very much organized.
All the suspects would later be moved to the EFCC Directorate in Lagos for proper profiling in preparation for the arraignment in court. But managing the sheer number of the suspects was no mean feat.
Despite the fact that we may have made some operational plans, but the operation, because of the large number of people, over 700 or getting to almost 800 people were arrested in one instant. And then when you have like that large number of people, how much number of operatives do you need to have on ground to control that large number of people? And knowing us Nigerians who we are and the potential for us to become unruly when we are in large numbers. So it was really something that I will forever cherish, kind of, with the challenge that we face and how we were able to overcome it.
Many of the suspects have since been taken to court on charges bordering on cybercrime, cyberterrorism, identity theft, among others. Over 100 of them, all foreigners, have now been convicted and sentenced.
Actually, as of 25th of July, about 183 had been convicted. 183. We just have about 7 left. And even out of the 7, 4 have applied for plea bargain and all of that. So we have recorded the substantial resources in the prosecution. Yes, we also had some assets forfeited. That's some virtual assets, crypto assets worth about $200,000. Also, we have been able to secure the the forfeiture of over 1,500 computers and over 4,000 mobile phones. Over 4,000 mobile phones that were confiscated from these people. So you can imagine the extent of these nefarious activities being carried out by these folks. So by and large, we have recorded substantial success in this investigation and prosecution. And I think without being immodest, it's a world record.
As it is now, there are some that are proceeding to full trial, those who have chosen to face and defend the charges against them. And there are some that have chosen to plea bargain. So those who have chosen to go for the full trial are undergoing their trials. They are having their days in court. Those who have chosen to plea bargain, we have disposed of that, and there are still some more in the queue.
Before anybody would want to go into a plea bargain, you must be certain that you have done your work absolutely to the best of your ability, and that the evidence that you have presented are compelling to the extent that they feel that it will be a waste of time for them to go to a full trial. And that is the situation that we find ourselves in. We were able to gather enough evidence to confront them with, and all of them know that they are mostly involved in this crime. With the evidence that you have, a number of them just felt there was no need stretching the legal process, and they came up to plead guilty to the charges that we filed against them.
With the convictions comes a sense of fulfillment for the officers behind the landmark operation.
I am fulfilled because all the effort that we have put into this work is finally yielding result. First of all, it's sending a clear message to the foreigners who are luring our youth into this type of activities that it cannot be tolerated. Secondly, the youth too are also learning that partaking in this criminal activity will not help them. hence making them to change their trajectory into something that is more positive. So if you look at it and the perception across the globe about Nigeria, now it creates the sense that Nigeria is actually doing something to get rid of this type of criminal activities. So I am fulfilled. We have put a lot of effort. We have not let our chairman down. We have brought honor to all the promises that he has made to help Nigerians to fight this type of criminal activities are fulfilled before his very eyes.
Now with this investigation and with the success rate of the prosecution, and the whole world should know that Nigeria will not tolerate such nefarious activities. Nigeria will not be allowed itself to be turned to a safe haven for these criminals. And EFCC will do everything possible to get them at any time, anywhere, and will expose their nefarious activities and ensure that they are prosecuted.
Eagle Flush was not just an operation. It was a powerful statement by Nigeria's anti-graft police that there will be no hiding place for cyber criminals in Nigeria.
It's one of the great landmarks of the EFCC airport, because out there, the impression that people are having globally is that it is only Nigerians that are perpetuating internet fraud, that are perpetuating all sorts of financial and dubious thing in Nigeria, in the name of Nigeria. But here we are arresting over 700 people involved in this financial fraud. This is a commendable effort, and we can only give our moral support to this nationalistic work that the EFCC is doing.
For foreigners especially who believe that cyber criminality in Nigeria is a Nigerian affair, this operation has proved one thing, that you have a number of criminal elements who are foreigners coming into Nigeria to establish fraud syndicate in the country, and they pretend or project the image that these things are being done by Nigerians. This operation has proven that it's not Nigerians that are actually driving this criminality. You have foreigners, mostly from the Asian subcontinent, who are in Nigeria doing fraud. But what the investigation that we have conducted over the last couple of months have clearly shown is that the Commission has capacity to detect fraud wherever it is perpetrated in Nigeria. And whether you are Nigerian or you are a foreigner involved in cyber criminality, it's only a matter of time that the EFCC will simply get you. And that is our slogan. It might take time, but wherever you are, we'll get you.
There's hardly anything me and my men will be able to do without the support of Mr. President. The tone is always set at the top, according to the popular saying in our parlance. Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has given us the right atmosphere to operate. He has given us all the necessary support, and he has assured us that he's going to, encourage us all the way through to ensure that Nigeria become a safe place for foreign direct investment. That anybody who eventually is scammed of his wealth will be restored, as it were. And so it's important for us to give credit to Mr. President, and also to give credit to my men who have been working day and night to ensure that any victim of this crime is restored. And eventually we ensure that anyone who comes to Nigeria to invest will be sure that the environment is safe, the financial ecosystem is sane and is clean for them to carry out their activities.
The world has for long regarded Nigeria as a haven for cyber criminals. The current management and officers of the EFCC are fighting hard to change that narrative, and they are succeeding, one operation at a time. While the fight is a tough one, their commitment and determination are as hard as steel, and their optimism unwavering.
The EFCC has never rested from the one that it was created, and it will never rest. We're even more determined, from the leadership down to every single one of us. As the battle gets tougher, we are toughened to always confront it and to continue fighting.
Having had their day in court, convicted and sentenced, the foreign cyber criminals are now being deported to their countries. In collaboration with the EFCC, the Nigeria Immigration Service has now deported over 100 of them.
We also commend the effort of government to deport these bad eggs who have come to this country in the name of doing legitimate business, but ended up actually destroying our reputation, our country, and also training some Nigerians to be doing these fraudulent activities. So deporting them is the right way. And in fact, not only deporting them, banning them completely from coming to Nigeria, because as long as they will come back, they will continue to activate this network of criminals to continue to perpetuate criminality, and the integrity and the name of Nigeria will continue to spoil, because the people they train, they will also spread across the world to continue to commit this kind of atrocities.
We are telling the criminals that EFCC is on them. We are not going to relent. And men are working almost 24 hours to ensure that we fulfill our mandate and to ensure that we make Nigeria a place that is going to be extremely difficult for them to carry out any inferior activities. And also, as the president of NASIWA is a network of anti-corruption institutions in West Africa. We're trying to syndicate efforts with all my colleagues across West Africa sub-region. And we have agreed to work together to share intelligence, to share information, to ensure that no West Africa countries will serve as safe haven for some of these criminals. So on our part, we will do our best. And the rest of the world need to join hands with us so that we can also make the whole world, a place where anybody can go and have their investment carried out and becomes not being made a safe haven for criminals. And that's a message to all our colleagues across the world.
All the foreign convicts from Operation Eagle Flush will now be deported after serving their sentence.
There are at least 4 to 5 million lives that are saved as a result of being vaccinated, year in and year out. Immunization is one of the most effective, most impactful health interventions in all of human history, and I'd love to tell you why that is and about it. Tens of millions of people, in fact, over the course of human history, hundreds of millions of people died from smallpox. It was a dreaded disease. And in the late 1700s was an amazing breakthrough. A British physician, Jenner, noticed that milkmaids who had been infected not from smallpox, but from a related virus called cowpox, they were pretty immune from getting smallpox. And so he used that observation to, in fact, immunize an 8-year-old boy, James Phipps, using the cowpox virus. And then weeks later, he exposed James Phipps, with of course the permission of his parents, to smallpox, and he didn't get sick from smallpox. And smallpox is a disease we don't have anymore anywhere in the world. And the reason we don't have this disease is because of vaccination. Another disease that's really front and center big spotlight on trying to eradicate this disease, meaning wipe it off the face of the earth once and for all, just as we've done for smallpox, is polio. I think everybody knows what polio looks like. Paralysis of limbs, long life, disability. Many people die of polio as well. And this means vaccinating, for instance, in Pakistan, in India, in many other countries, huge campaigns that have vaccinated tens of millions of children in short periods of time. We're now at the point where polio has been reduced by over 99% compared with the way polio used to be before we had vaccines. We're so close to ending this. We're so close to the last few cases. We're so close to ending the transmission of this virus. I worked in a hospital in the country of Haiti, in the capital city, in Port-au-Prince. The pediatric ward in that hospital was full of children who had measles, who had diarrhea, who had meningitis, children who had tuberculosis, children who were born with tetanus. And about a third of children who were admitted to that pediatric ward died on a daily basis. And so many of the illnesses that children came in with were illnesses that were completely preventable with vaccination. It was a really important period for me in my training, in my life, to decide to really devote my career to making sure that vaccines were not only developed for diseases for which we didn't have them yet, but also, perhaps more importantly, that the vaccines that we already have are completely accessible, completely available, completely safe and effective for people in every part of the world, no matter what community you're born in. So we've all been living through what has been an enormously difficult couple of years, this pandemic, COVID-19. And one of the things that the world over, I think everybody knows, is the incredible development in rapid time, in frankly unprecedented time, of vaccines that prevent COVID disease. They work against infection and transmission as well. One of the ways that vaccines have gotten into every country around the world is through the COVAX facility. And the COVAX facility is the mechanism to buy vaccines, which is happening on a billions of dose basis, and get them shipped to countries that need these vaccines that can't buy them on their own. There are 92 countries that are benefiting. And when we think about low-income countries, over 80% of the doses that are provided to low-income countries are coming through the COVAX facility. We vaccinate against diseases that are transmissible from person to person. And that means that each of us presents some risk to someone else unless we're protecting ourselves through the use of vaccines. So I really think about vaccination as a social equity issue and a social justice issue. And there's nothing more overwhelming, there's nothing more tragic than a perfectly healthy child who succumbs to an infection that was completely preventable.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Joy Uchejem, standing in for Deji Badmosi. Now, a new policy introduced by the United States government is set to affect some Nigerians and other African nationals applying for business and tourist visas, with applicants potentially required to provide a refundable bond of up to $20,000 as a guarantee that they will leave the country at the expiration of their authorized stay. The move comes amid broader efforts by Washington to strengthen immigration controls, improve identity verification, and address concerns over visitors who remain in the U.S. beyond their approved period. The new visa bond program, which became permanent on August 3, 2026, follows a pilot phase introduced in 2025.
Under the policy, U.S. consular officers will determine whether an applicant is required to pay a bond and settle the amount at $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000, depending on individual circumstances. U.S. officials say the refundable bond is designed to encourage visa holders to comply with immigration rules and return home after their authorized stay, rather than serve as a punitive measure. On TV360, we're examining what this policy means for Nigerians seeking entry into the United States. I am now being joined by the Executive Director, Patriotic Citizen Initiatives, Osita Osemene. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Osita.
Thank you. Thank you, Joy.
All right, sir. Now, the U.S. says the refundable visa bond is meant to ensure visitors return home before their authorized stay expires. Based on your experience, do financial guarantees actually reduce visa overstays, or are the underlying causes of irregular migration far more complex?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, with the recent development by the U.S. government, for me, it's not new. It's something that have been existing. I recall May this year, I was to be in the US for the International Migration Review Forum. Under the government of Nigeria, I was shortlisted to be one of the delegates, and we applied for visa. You'll be surprised that I was denied the visa, even with the government intervention, government of Nigeria intervention. I was denied a visa because of the green passport. And, the option that was given was that if I have an official passport or the diplomatic passport, I will be given a visa. Now, you will now begin to see that the measure the US is taking now is not a new measure. It's something that has been existing for Nigerians and Africans at large. A lot of Africans were affected in that, and coming up with this now is like they are trying to strengthen or increase the measures that they have put up before, because before now, there have been measures to ensure that Africans, Nigerians and Africans, do not just apply for visa and get it easily to US. So coming up with this amount is a kind of a restriction, and also a kind of discouraging a lot of people from applying for US visa.
All right, from your work with Nigerians abroad, what are the most common reasons that people overstay their visas? And how might this new bond policy change the behavior of prospective travelers?
Well, I don't think it's going to change any behavior, because most of these measures have been existing. It's not going to change anything. A lot of Africans will still, continue to stay back, even with all this. They will continue to find ways, to boycott some of these measures that have been put in place. Looking at other countries that have all those kind of measures, like in the Europe and other countries, you can see some of these measures still exist, but you see that Africans and Nigerians still have a way of ensuring that they overstay and creating a lot of problems. In the recent time, I've received a lot of Nigerians from different parts of the world, from India, from other countries, that have overstayed in these countries, and they were forced to return back. Some were carried from their workplace, some were carried along the road, because they refused to comply with the rules of those countries. So you will continue to have this, and you will continue to have a lot of Nigerians being, deported or being forced back as a result of these rules that have been existing. So for me, it's not something new, and it's not something that is going to be a kind of Africans will continue to overstay. People will continue to move. A lot of people, because of issues of greener pastures, you cannot rule it out that they will find a way to cut corners and stay back in those countries.
Yes, so this policy could require some applicants to deposit as much as $20,000 before receiving a visa. In practical terms, who is most likely to be affected? Could this actually affect, genuine business travelers, tourists, and families? Could this really affect them genuinely?
No. In recent times, people deposit money. I've seen some people that have deposited 15 million and above, and still they were deprived of this visa. And also a lot of people who have not gotten the means to have this kind of amount also are going to be affected. You know, the businessmen, most of them, you know, have what it takes to come up with this kind of amount. But a lot, you know, and one thing I've also found out in this measure that have been put in place is that it's not a guarantee that people will get visa. Look at the clause very well. The policy does not guarantee you that when you deposit such money that you're going to get visa, but also is a kind of a part of the criteria for you to now have a visa. And these are measures to deter people from applying, because they know a lot of people may not have up to this amount. But for those who have it, by the time you deposit the money, it's part of the criteria that was, okay, this guy is qualified, or this family, they are qualified to apply for such a visa.
Yes, based on the statistics, you saw that it actually reduced the number of people applying for visas by a very large amount.
Exactly.
Now, you've been involved. Exactly. So you've been involved in repatriating or in helping repatriated Nigerians settle down, back in the country after they return. Based on your experience, what are the biggest challenges that Nigerians face once they fall out of the legal immigration status? What exactly do they face over there in the United States?
You know, first of all, they face a lot of issues that has to do with social status. You know, they are not being privileged to a lot of things anymore. They live in hiding. They are afraid of arrest, you know, and the kind of job, you know, they now get. Some of them don't have job, you know, so they suffer a lot of setback in terms of survival over there, you know, and also the risk of being repatriated back into the country is also a very big challenge, because some of them don't want to come back, and the system also don't want to absorb them, because some of them have appealed and they have not been able to be granted, you know, any kind of asylum or any kind of you know, permission to stay back in the US. So they face a lot of challenge. They face a lot, you know, risk of arrest. There's no job, hard to survive and everything. So it's a big problem for those people who have been deprived of renewing their status in the US and probably other countries. Yeah.
Yeah, so for Nigerians who genuinely intend to travel for business or tourism, what steps can they take to, strengthen their visa applications and avoid being viewed as potential overstay risks by immigration authorities? What step exactly should they take?
Yeah, for me, I think what Nigerians should begin to do is begin to, normalize will I say normalize? Whatever they are doing in Nigeria, they should be serious about it and also be documenting it appropriately, because most of these countries, they look at history. I remember the first time I applied for European visa, I was denied, and that was just about a few years ago. And after that, because I've improved on my job and what I'm doing in Nigeria, they have looked at the history, and when I applied again, they granted my visa. And you know that last year I also applied for Schengen visa, and I was given 1 year, when I was going to stay for just about 1 week or 2 weeks. So these people, they are studying, your history, they are looking at your background, they're looking about what you're doing. They want to they know, they have a way of checking, Nigerians and who is going to stay and who is going to return back to Nigeria. So I would advise Nigerians, whatever you're doing, do it, and then don't create the impression that you are going for greener pastures, because they know when people are leaving, their jobs in Nigeria and running to Europe or running to US or Canada. When you have a history of someone who is genuinely doing a business in Nigeria and your survival is, above average, when you apply for visa, you will be granted, and they look at your history, you will be granted.
All right, now, beyond complying with visa conditions, what role should the Nigerian government play in reducing irregular migration? Because we've always had this large influx of people who desire to see greener pasture, as you've said. What role do you think the Nigerian government should play in reducing the high number of people migrating from Nigeria?
Yeah, I think this question is very critical and apt. Nigerian government should take this issue of Nigerians running out of this country at all costs very serious. It's a show of a system failure, because in as much as I am not against people traveling, migration is part of life, but the type of migration we're having in Nigeria is that people are running because they don't feel safe. Two, they are running for survival. It means that there is a problem. So Nigeria should prioritize, especially the government, should prioritize the issue of unemployment and create an enabling environment for people, for businesses to thrive. And also look at areas where they can strengthen the structures in the system, so that the structures will be able to address the driving factor, because all these push factors are as a result of things that have gone wrong in the system. Look at the issue of insecurity, look at the issue of roads, look at the issue of lights. You know, these are things that are pushing people out of this country. So I appeal to the system, I appeal to the government to look at some of these things and take them serious and don't politicize, you know, issues that has to do with Nigerians surviving in the country. Because a country where issues of livelihood is prioritized for citizens, you know, you will hardly see them leaving their country. Look at Nigerians traveling, not just US and Canada. Look at other West African countries. People are trooping out, and Nigerians are being deceived, being taken out to go and do crime in other countries. So if the government is serious, they will be able to reduce it to the barest minimum by creating the same enabling environment whereby people run to go and see it in other countries, and they will see it in Nigeria. So this is my appeal.
In addition to, you know, what you're saying the government should do, can you speak to the reintegration of people who have been repatriated back into the country? What more do you think the government should do? Should there be, you know, better reintegration programs for returnees, or do you believe the government is doing enough at this moment?
Part of the problem that we have in reintegration is because of the structures we have on ground. The structures are weak, and the government need to strengthen these structures. You know, look at our medical sector, you know, the health sector. You know, the structures are weak, because when you talk about reintegration, the reintegration is not about the money they are giving to these people. The reintegration is about when you give somebody money, how can the system sustain him in this money? Like I said, there are no lights, there are no good roads, you know, the health system is poor, you know, a lot of things are expensive, the economy, things are high in the market. So when government, you know, intervene in these things, the reintegration, you know, will also be very, very sustainable, because some of these things are support systems. Some of these structures on ground that belongs to government and belong to the masses are being made available, are being made, you know, strengthened by government. Once government ensures that all these things are put in place, by the time these people return back, they would like to stay back into the country. You can imagine when people come back, you provide support for them. They are not able, they will be buying fuel with the support. You know, a liter of fuel is very expensive now. Somebody will use the reintegration money to buy fuel, or you open business. So you can't expect reintegration to be sustainable when these issues are on ground. So these issues must be addressed for government to ensure that reintegration is sustainable and people are ready to stay back. Because most times when people remigrate, it's as a result of the failure of some of these things I've mentioned. So if government can be fully involved and ensure that these things are strengthened, these things are activated, they are working, you know, reintegration will be fine. And people would like to come back to Nigeria. Even in security, you know, I was happy today. I was traveling along the road. I didn't see harassment, you know, police, they were not, you know, blocking the roads. The road was free from Lagos to Ibadan. So you can see if some of these things are happening, people will be happy. And when they return back, you will see that they want to stay back. And reintegration is not just about what government has given to them or what government want to give to them. It's also about what the system has in place and how the environment is enabling for them to try. Thank you.
All right, so still speaking on what the government can do diplomatically, do you believe that, you know, the Nigerian government can reach out to the US policymakers, to the US government to find a way to mitigate the situation and, you know, possibly reduce this rates for the visa bonds? Do you think that's a possibility in the light of what's happening right now?
Well, like you said, diplomatically, there can be a discussion, but with the kind of U.S. government that I know now, it will be difficult. But, you know, it has to be an ongoing discussion, something that would take some time. You know, they have to convince U.S., you know, because before U.S. comes out with policy, they don't joke with their policy. They will tell you, we are United States, and these are policy. But if government keep on putting pressure on them to see how they can reduce it, they may not scrap it like that. They may reduce it, but depends on the kind of negotiation and who is involved in that negotiation.
All right, so looking ahead, do you think this visa bond program could become a model that's adopted by other countries apart from the United States? Because we see that the US is not the only country that Nigerians seems to, migrate to for greener pastures. Do you believe this program could be something that will be adopted by other countries to reduce the migration of citizens from Africa and Nigeria especially?
Yeah, like you said, some other countries have adopted it. And if you look at the way it is, like, for me, this may not even be a solution for Nigeria, because Nigerians are diehard people. They will always find a way to ensure that they meet up with some of these responsibilities. I've discussed with a lot of Nigerians who want to migrate that save as much as 70 million, save as much as 100 million to move to Canada. So I don't think this is a very strange thing or something that will be very tough for Nigerians, even though I want them to reduce it. But is as long as there is still a channel, because whether I would like it or not, there is still an opening. By putting this amount, Nigerians will still find a way of making sure that they move. And I also look at it that in their policy, there may be some clause. There are some kind of trip that you are going to embark on that may not require you to pay this kind of amount. There are some kind of official trip and a kind of trip that may involve you boycotting some of this amount. And also, this measure is basically to deter people who are going for probably greener pastures. They are trying to use it to reduce the high rate of irregular migrants with their status in US and abroad. So I see it that is something that Nigerians could, in a way, find their way out around it. Yeah.
All right. So earlier in this interview, you made mention of a situation where you applied for a visa and it was denied. So can you walk us through that process? You've learned lessons from it, and the people who genuinely want to, apply for a visa to go to the US, and they may seem to have something to learn from that experience. So can you just walk us through the process? Let us know what led to the denial and what lessons you've learned from that experience.
Yeah, like I said, when they look at history, when you apply for visa, they have a way of doing background check, and the documentations that are being required, they will look at it. I just observed that maybe as at the time I applied, they were suspicious of my status and the kind of documentation that was submitted. They look at my background, they look at my history and everything, But 2 years after, when somehow my profile was upgraded, and they also saw it and looked at it, and I was granted visa. So what I would say to Nigeria is that your background information is very important. What you do, how you go about it, what you have, your history of your work or your business is also very key to the kind of visa and how they are going to give you your visa. And since then, I've not suffered for any visa. I've traveled to more than 5 countries since that time. And this was a short period. Within the 5 years, I've been to Spain. After I was denied in Italy, I've been to Spain. I've been to Italy twice. So some of these things that have happened, I've been to Holland twice, within that period, after that period. And these are countries that are very stringent with some of their rules because of issue of irregular migration. But now they can grant me that visa. So I will advise Nigerians to ensure that their history and their profile is properly kept and they are genuine with whatever they are doing, and their records are clear. Some of these things, when they see it, it doesn't look suspicious, and the visas will be granted to you.
All right. So you mentioned that there's a need to fix our background and make sure that everything is legal and genuine. But now there's a very high influx of, credit loan apps, sites that can be used to borrow money, basically. And a lot of Nigerians are going into this because we've seen reports from the CBN that the credit statistics is increasing. So do you think this has a negative effect on the possibility of, having your visa received or accepted by the United States? Do you think borrowing or having debts can affect the stance or the ability of the US receiving your visa?
Well, I think borrowing is dangerous because it depends on the duration of time, because you have to, like I said, history is very important when you're applying for visa. When you borrow money and you're not going to pay that money within a period of time, you run into trouble, and it will speak, it will be very loud when they are looking at your statement of account and whatever. Because when you apply for visa, you have to bring out your statement of account within 6 months. And when you borrow money, there's high rate of interest now. Can you wait for 6 months when you borrow the money, and how are you going to pay back? So it's going to affect negatively on people who are borrowing, and I don't see it as a solution. In short, it's going to be a big problem. A lot of people are going to be indebted. There's going to be a lot of penalties on people who are taking loan because of traveling, because the interest rate will be so high. It's going to affect negatively. So it's not going to really be a solution, in this what is happening now. Yeah.
All right. So finally, we've seen that there are many genuine Nigerians who actually want to stay for the specified duration of time that they've put in on their visa. They're not looking for a regular migration, right?
Me.
Yes. So there are
Like
Nigerians who will fall into that situation. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. All right. So there are Nigerians who fall into that situation where they genuinely want to stay for a specific amount of time. They're not looking for irregular migration, but then this visa bond is going to be very tough for them to afford. Some may not be able to afford it. So are there any alternative or legal pathways that could, enable them to still pursue their international travel without looking at irregular migration? Is there any alternative for those who cannot afford this?
Yes, there are a lot of legal pathways, both to Europe, to US, to Canada. There are a lot of illegal pathways. It's just that people are not patient to look for information. They cannot ask for information. Like we have some places where you can go and make requests and ask genuinely what is happening. There are like in the German government now is very, very serious about ensuring that Nigerians, instead of coming there regularly, they do what they call job matching skills. They train people here in Nigeria now to match them with jobs in Germany and other countries. There are a lot of schemes that are coming up. Just that people are not ready. People are not willing, to professionalize or to upscale their skills to match with what is happening in those countries, in other countries, so that they can get jobs. A lot of people are in a hurry to go and do menial jobs. You have seen I've seen pictures and updates of some people who are bankers in Nigeria. They have gone and they're working in hotels as cleaners in Canada and some other countries. And when you go for this kind of jobs, you should be prepared to pay $20,000, so that you'll be able to acquire visa. But when you are ready, when you calm down and search for alternatives to migration, things that you can do, that they will welcome you, they will request for you. When countries are welcoming you, when they are requesting for you, you will not go into all these problems. So Nigerians should begin to look for information. They should be able to search what is happening in this country that they require, that they need me. At times, countries, we advertise for health workers. At times, they advertise for hospitality in people. At times, they advertise for teachers. So if you have the qualifications, you apply and you will be gotten. But when you want to go, just because you feel that you want to go for greener pastures without any thinking of what you're going to do there, you are going to fall into all these problems, and the adverse effect may be negative. So I advise Nigerians to look at what is possible, what is obtainable in countries that they can apply for, and these things are there.
All right, thank you so much. So basically, Nigerians who are seeking opportunities abroad must ensure that they remain informed, seek information, and comply with the immigration rules. Thank you so much. The Executive Director, Patriotic Citizens Initiative, Osita Osemede, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, and I appreciate it.
All right. So that's what we'll draw the curtains on TV360. I am Joy Ucheje. Thank you for watching.
Here's our dilemma. We need industry to make the things we need, like cars, buses, tractors, and computers. But we also need a clean, livable planet. And yet this dilemma has a real and practical solution. We can have both, but we need to make the right decisions. How? It's about using the right sources of energy and cutting back on waste. We have the power and knowledge to create a world with billions of green jobs based on renewable energy and clean manufacturing. We can build on what is already happening. Take my country, India. Our industries will need to find ways to switch away from coal and to develop sources of clean energy. For example, many cement companies have reduced their CO2 emissions by increasing the use of fly ash, which is a waste material from burning coal in thermal power plants. Then others have taken a pledge to go 100% renewable. Things are changing. We are finding ways to use less material in our new structures and to reuse, to recycle and to reduce. The major car markets are moving towards 100% sale of electric cars by 2030. Now we need a mobility transformation so that we can use cleaner electric power for mass transportation in buses and other modes. And in the last decade, the steel industry has substantially reduced its energy use per ton of steel. But much more needs to be done. We know this. Our roadmap is the Paris Climate Agreement, adopted by nearly 200 countries. Every nation has to report regularly on how they are increasing their efforts to keep temperature rise to well below 2 degrees Celsius. Climate change is a matter of justice. It is the poor who are exposed to the worst effects: flooding, droughts, fires, and storms. And since industry contributes a fifth of the world's greenhouse gases, governments, communities, and businesses must work together to make the shift to clean energy. So spread the word about the climate action you are taking to support the Paris Agreement.
Hello and welcome to another insightful edition of Lagos Voices, the program where we take a closer look at the stories shaping life in Lagos. I am your host, Victoria Akonde. On this edition, we are looking at two stories that in different ways say a lot about this city we live in. The first takes us to parts of Etiosa, where weeks of heavy rainfall have left many residents dealing with flooding once again. The second reflects on some of the defining moments of the Sanwo-Olu administration through a newly unveiled photographic publication. Now we begin in Etiosa.
For many residents, getting from one point to another now means walking through flood waters or even boarding a canoe on submerged tarred streets. What were once busy access roads now serve as waterways, slowing movement and disrupting daily activities. The state government has now decided to do something about the situation. The governor of the state and his team have begun touring flood-affected communities at Ogombo, Monastery Road, Chevron Drive, Ajiron and Awoyaya to assess the situation. They have been inspecting drainage channels, tributaries and other critical waterways. As he assessed the affected areas, the governor sympathized with families whose homes and livelihoods have been impacted, assuring them that the government would evaluate the damage and provide relief where necessary. He said while the recent rainfall has been exceptionally heavy, years of encroachment on natural waterways, blocked drainage channels and unregulated developments have significantly worsened flooding across the Lekki corridor.
We started all the way from Ogombo You know, we came all the way from the coastal road up onto Ogombo, and you saw the extent of the overflow, extremely very wet land, in which the decompile there has to be raised up, but more importantly, because of the volume of water, it overflows on the left and on the right. But you could see that it was a wetland and it's a natural cause of water. We also saw at the monastery another tributary, which you also saw that the bridge, which is like a decompile, is still very much in place, but because of the volume of water, you know, and you saw that Swan Boogie were already working, you know, on that corridor, clearing all of the water hyacinths there, and you could see that it was flowing, but it's still a consequence of the volume and measurement of water. And here again, towards Ibejuleki town, is Betuwereko, which is another tributary, right? This one is supposed to continue and go all the way, you know, pass through Eleko and eventually discharge into the Lekki Lagoon, which is almost towards the free trade zone. So what, gentlemen of the press, what you can see, why we have been very intentional about the corridors we have taken you to, is to see that water flows a natural channel. Lagos, when we say Lagos is surrounded by water and several tributaries, you've seen that some of these tributaries are not only natural, but they've been in existence way before. I'm told, even here today now, that from Lekki Lagoon, this same water you see, several decades ago, you can actually log and go all the way to Morocco. So these are natural waters that have been part of the Lagos story. But over the years, what you've also seen is you've seen constriction, you've seen development that have come to meet the natural body of water. You've seen development coming around, and in some places, you've seen from our drone, there's constriction, meaning that people that do not have approval, drainage approval also, have restricted the flow of this water in some places, right? And in some other places, because of natural desilting, because of natural desilting, it has, you know, they will have settled in. That's why we need to come regularly to come and desilt and excavate and evacuate so that there can be flow of it. In all of the journey we have seen today, there is a natural occurrence. There's also a human factor out of it. But I think the volume of water that we have recorded in the last 3-4 weeks in Lagos are largely due to natural occurrence, right? And nature will always take its course. But it's important for me that between the last 2 days, when there's a slowdown of the rain, for us to come out and see where we need to do additional drainage improvement and additional investment in building, you know, clear water channel. Here where we're standing now, we need to come back here at some point before the end of it and come and raise the decompile so that the height will be higher, right, and that the water can flow even a lot more. The other thing is that the swamp boogies that are of the body of water is maintained. Once all of that is maintained, at least on this corridor, the water will eventually find itself, you know, to the Lekki Lagoon or into the main lagoon at some point, right, or to Lagos Lagoon. However, what you also see is that when there is also a large flow of water, there's what we call a backflow. The lagoon themselves will backflow because at some point in time, when water reaches some equilibrium, it will backflow back. So it makes it difficult for a movement, you know, an inflow into the lagoon. There will be like what we see like an outflow. But over the time, it will correct itself back and it will be able to receive the body of water and eventually at some point, get onto the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a science, but it's also a natural science that usually works.
To address the challenge, the governor announced a review of the master plans for flood-prone communities to identify planning infractions and restore natural drainage alignments. He also said dredging, Excavation and drainage expansion projects will be intensified to improve water flow and strengthen the state's flood resilience.
Government has been here, and we've seen that, this shouldn't have happened in the first place. And you can see that we're throwing the entire channel all the way to the lagoon. This is another body of water that will give relief to this large channel that is coming. And at the back there, where those white is another channel all the way from the Kota River that will go and discharge onto the lagoon. So there are two outlets that you're seeing here that are going to discharge onto the lagoon, and we believe these two solutions will significantly relieve some of the pressures we have seen, even from the other side, all the way from Orchid, all the way from Mega Mode, all the way from Oshakwa, London. This is where you see the exit onto the lagoon. Kanajiko, you can see the exit up onto the lagoon. So, thankfully, the work is going. You can see the boogies, you can see all of them working. It's really around ensuring that we can completely bring a lasting solution to our residents in the entire neighborhood. There's still a lot of work to be done. We're going to build, a deck on part, which is like a bridge, on that side further down. And to access all of this land, there's also going to be another deck on part, so that underneath we'll have big rings, of body of water that will ensure that this place is permanently deflooded of today or future, challenges all around this place.
For residents, the flooding has become a recurring challenge, disrupting movement and affecting livelihoods. While many blame poor drainage and unchecked development, others pointed to an overflowing canal they say has worsened flooding in their community over the years.
We've been having problems with this canal for that past few years, but the way the thing is going every year is terrible. There was even a year that we had to bring canoe to fly here for children to go to school, because most times it used to be third term section for children to go all the way down there. We know we cannot control water generally, but at least water should flow. When water flows, it will move to the canal, and people in the residence area will be able to live their lives freely.
The governor's visit has also drawn commendation from the majority leader of the Lagos State House of Assembly, who expressed confidence in the state's intervention.
You agree with me that you've seen a lot of videos circulating around showing the flooded areas in Etiosa, like areas of Ajino that we are here right now today in Ajino, we have in Monastery, we have in Ologolo, we have in Alpha Beach, and we have in Ogombo, we have in Lekki Garden. So many areas in Etiosa have been flooded. And we cried to our governor, and we cried to the Lagos State government. I want to thank the governor of Lagos State for listening to the cry of the people of Etiosa, for coming to the aid of the people of Etiosa, for coming himself personally to assess the flood that is going on. In fact, the governor is not only assess alone, he has to put his leg inside the water. It shows that he is a man of the people. It shows that he cares about the people of Lagos State. So once again, on behalf of the people of Etiosa Constituency 1, so since they are here today, we'll be expecting positive changes in the flood. They have come to look at the temporary solutions, and they have also talked about the permanent solutions. Those both will be addressed. The temporary and the permanent solutions will be addressed by the governor.
It's appealed to residents to keep drainage channels free of refuse, stressing that while it will continue expanding drainage infrastructure and restoring natural waterways, lasting flood control will depend on shared commitment to protecting the environment.
Welcome back. The visit to Etiosa wasn't just about assessing the damage. It was also an opportunity for Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu to outline what the state says it will do differently, from reviewing the master plans of the flood-prone communities to restoring natural drainage systems. Now, whether those interventions deliver the lasting relief residents are hoping for will become clearer with time. As those efforts continue, the governor has also unveiled a new photographic publication reflecting on some of the defining moments of his administrations over the past years. Let's take a closer look.
Sometimes history is written in words,
Other times, it is captured through a camera lens. For Lagos State's Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Against All Odds is more than a collection of photographs. It is a visual record of an administration shaped by some of the state's most defining moments. Authored by the governor's official photographer, Ademola Olaniran, the publication chronicles events from Sanwo-Olu's first term and the early years of his second, documenting the COVID-19 pandemic, the EndSARS protests, the Abule Edo explosion, infrastructure development, and key government interventions.
When our young people cried out against police brutality, we chose to listen rather than to lecture. I stood with them on the toll gate. We carried their demands to Abuja that very day. We sat with the injured in hospital wards at night. We empaneled an independent inquiry. We published its findings. We made restitutions to victims, and we set about rebuilding not only the terminals and the courthouses that were burned, but far more precious convenient things that was important to every Lagosian, young and old. And when the grief visited us in fire and in collapse and the losses, we mourned with our people, and then we went back. We went back to work, because Lagos, mourning and building are not opposite. They are how the city survives.
Reflecting on his years in office, the governor describes his first term as one defined by successive emergencies that tested both government institutions and the resilience of Lagos residents. Despite those challenges, he says the state remained focused on delivering major infrastructure projects, expanding social services, and sustaining economic growth. Among the achievements highlighted were the completion of the blue and red rail lines, the commencement of operations at the Lekki Deep Sea Port, investments in housing, healthcare and education, as well as initiatives aimed at improving food security and preserving the state's cultural heritage.
The volume our first term, which is from 2019 to 2023. The years are fierce storm, and I'm reliably assured that the second volume will come before the end of our second tenure. So, cabinet members, don't give up on yourself. Continue to push harder, continue to work harder, continue to ensure that all of these promises that we've given Lagosians will not stop. We have promised Lagosians that we work twice as hard, we work twice as smart, we work twice as better than we started. And we're going to hit the finish line with every strength, with every fiber that we have.
For the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Obafemi Hamzat, the publication serves as more than a photographic archive. He says it preserves the human stories behind governance and the impact of public policy on everyday lives.
In my view, this book, Against All Odds, is not just a title. It is a testimony to the courage, discipline, and focus that have characterized Governor Sanwo-Olu's journey in public service, especially what happened in the first 4 years with COVID, with EndSARS, and all sorts. So I'm proud to say that I was part of that journey. It is an attestation to the popular saying that a picture is worth more than 1,000 words.
Sanwo-Olu eventually emerged on 2 October 2018 as the winner of the APC governorship primaries with 970,851 votes, leaving the incumbent Governor Akinwumi Ambode with 72,901 votes. Still, the rancor within the rank and file of APC and the crisis of confidence among some sections of the electorate persisted. That deep division needed a calm head and a peacemaker. Sanwo-Olu rose to the challenge and was able to reconcile different warring factions and various groups. APC then presented a formidable front that roundly beat Mr. Jimmy Agbaje of the People's Democratic Party at the poll on 9 March 2019 after an intense campaign. There are pictures in this book of party leaders campaigning and marketing the candidates and talking to people about the programs of APC. These programs were grounded in Greater Lagos Agenda called Teams Plus, a short for transportation, traffic management, technology, tourism, transparency in finance, air care, housing, environment, education, economy, entertainment, and security. That vigorous campaign culminated in power and glory on 29 May 2019 as Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and his deputy, Dr. Obafemi Hamzat, were sworn in. They were less than 10 months in office when coronavirus disease, COVID-19, which had been killing hundreds of people in China, United Kingdom, United States, and elsewhere, sneaked into Lagos like a thief in the night on 27 February 2020 through a plague vector, an Italian who flew into the city from Milan. That created moments of panic in Nigeria. In the long history of humanity, viruses have killed more people than wars. Those who are conscious of this fact were full of anxiety as that plague hit, leaving the world perplexed, mortally afraid, and disillusioned by the spate of death. Lagos was ready to wage a well-planned battle against that infectious disease. The governor and his team had set up what they call the Lagos State Incident Command Structure, ICS, which moved rapidly to counter the spread of the scourge. Regarding this invasion as war, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu took charge as the Lagos Incident Commander. His battle-ready second in command was Professor Akin Abayomi, the Commissioner for Health. Their war cabinet and all the full soldiers worked tirelessly to contain this arithmetic of death. Lockdowns were imposed. Like everyone else in the world, Lagosians were asked to wear face masks, observe physical distancing protocols, and clean up regularly. Restrictions on movements were painful, but they had to be imposed. So many people had to work remotely. The volume of COVID-19 testing was increased, and the process of diagnosis was made easy.
For the author, Ademola Laniran, the project was conceived as a visual testimony to leadership during extraordinary times. The book, he explains, was produced by a team of 11 professionals who spent years documenting the administration's activities across Lagos.
A photograph cannot invent character nor manufacture legacy. It can only bear witness. And what I witnessed for 7 years as a fly on the wall was a man whose hands power felt safe, who holds it just lightly enough not to choke it and firmly enough not to let it slip, yet commands it fully when it mattered the most. A man who cares for the common man and above all, a decent man.
The launch drew a cross-section of political leaders from across the country, including representatives of the National Assembly, governors, members of the diplomatic corps, business leaders, and traditional rulers. The leaders commended Governor Sanwo-Olu's handling of some of the state's most challenging moments and described the publication as an important visual record of governance and development in Lagos.
For whatever one's politics is, we can surely agree on this. It is a far easier thing to comment on the work than to do it. To govern a city of 20 million people is no tax for the faint heart. And the title choosing for this collection against all odds is not a mere title. Those of us in public life know the odds are real.
While history will ultimately judge the impact of the policies documented in its pages, Against All Odds now offers what its author describes as a visual archive of leadership through adversity, capturing moments of crisis, recovery, and development that have shaped Lagos over the past 6 years.
Whether it's responding to challenges of today or reflecting on the journey so far, what ultimately matters is the impact those decisions have on the lives of ordinary Lagosians, and that's a conversation we'll continue to follow. I remain your host, Victoria Conde. Thank you so much for watching Lagos Voices. See you next time.
What we really go through is not really meant for humans, because when you're there, like in a small room whereby you maybe like people of 10 people should be in, you come across like 100 people in a particular small room, and when you want to sleep, you have to sleep with your side. Everyone sleeps on sides. You understand? So there's no more space, and you want to ease yourself or make use of the toilet. It's just in front of you, so you can inhale the odor of the toilet, which is not conducive for the human health. So, and apart from that one, the weather is very, very cold, extremely cold, and at night, you don't have something like blankets that will be given to you. So it's not really good for the body, to be precise. And in terms of feeding, you're being given just a long bread. We call it hamsa. Just a long bread. That's your meal. They'll give you three of it. That's your meal for your lunch, your breakfast, and your dinner, which is not healthy at all. I was deported, and I was deported back to the border of Algeria and Mali. Okay, so when we were deported there, it was a Sahara Desert, to be precise. That's where they will leave you. And when they leave you in that border between Algeria and Mali, you have to walk 7 kilometers to the border of Mali, and we call that 7 kilometers to hellfire, because it's extremely hot over there. Some of them you were not really giving food well when you were in Shabbat camp. You don't have the strength to even walk. Some of them died along the way. Some of them, I'm not gonna lie you, have to drink their own urine just to survive, to have strength to be able to go to that next borderline of Algeria. So it's really, really hectic. You have to make a choice to go back to Algeria, or you have to go back to Morocco. And when you're being taken to the border of Algeria, the Algerian militants, they open fire on the militants of the Moroccans. So they don't have to hide. Or they can just tell you, okay, just go this way, just go down the valley.
Before I joined the police, I want to be a nurse. Where I'm just doing my traffic, they have been praying for me, and that one they make me happy. They brought. There is one woman last 2 years. She bring wrapper, clothes. I can't need, and I've been thanking my God, and I get some people, they have been bringing gifts for me. Is the, you know, among the people when you are living, some they know God, some they don't know God. Even if you are a housewoman, sometimes God will join you with your husband when you are appreciating you. Sometimes God will join you with your husband that, you know, they appreciate, even you do waiting, you know, go tell you, say, my wife, thank you, God bless. No, they are carrying themselves like this. So even here we have them. Some they don't even want to even greet us. You will greet them, they will not answer. Welcome, sir, welcome, man. They go do it like this, they go through where they are feeling. But we didn't, we don't even care. But we know, say, it's God. It's God that is putting us here, and it's God that is taking control of us. So they want to even hit us. That is time when somebody hit me with car here. And one woman come call me. She counted money that I should go and buy my medicine and cure myself. And I thank God I'm alive up to now. That is some woman that she tell me that I'm wasting my talent here. And there is nothing that I will achieve. I say, madam, I don't even care. But I'm thanking my God. Even I don't achieve anything. But I'm thanking God that I'm alive. One day I will achieve it. So it's the way we are. She's telling me, psycho, say I should stop that nonsense what I'm doing. I will not achieve anything when I'm wasting my talent here. I say, madam, I'm not wasting my talent. I know God, one day you will do something for my life. So I don't even care. If nobody do it, God will do it. And it's God that is remembering every person for this life. Even inside my office, when I'm working, when I'm doing my job, I'm singing, I'm dancing. Even where I work for K2 division, they know me. When they know I'm singing, they say, yes, this outside woman don't come. So everywhere, even at their house, I'm playing, dancing, rejoice, singing song, appreciating my God. Because if not be him, I will not be alive. And about traffic, they should obey the rules. But they're not here. But I want them to be telling them more and more again, so that we can find it easier. For when we say stop, then they should stop. Whether you are in a hurry, whether you be police, whether you be immigration, whether you be soldier, just try to maintain and stop. But they show that they will not stop. Who bring the law? Are they not the people that bring the law? And they don't want to obey the law. Why? Myself, if the government or the people that they are listening to us, they can feel help me and talk to my IG so that you release my promotion from Abuja. What I want, so that they will encourage me. Not be say they'll be hailing me. You are doing good job. You are doing good job. They'll be giving me award. They give me 7 awards. Even Ambodi Gomno. I never check hand with my Gomno for Gombe State. They bought me for Zamfara, but I'm ninja of Gombe State. I didn't check hand with anybody, any government, but Ambodi, I check hand with Ambodi. He give me award. He give me certificate. He give me check for money. Upon all this when I'm doing, they're supposed to even talk to my IG. They should release my promotion so that they will encourage me, so that they will make me more powerful for the work. Any work when you are doing, you must face challenges. So I don't even care.
So one last.
So they won't even want to slap me one day. They'll come out from their motor because I do like this. They know they hit their motor. They'll come out. They want to slap me. And the other people, they are passing. They say, madam, oh, Oga, if you slap this one, we are going to slap you because you don't know the kind of job when she's doing here. If you know it, you can't do this kind of thing. I want men that give me my promotion. Men then talk to IG. My IG, give me back my promotion because my men they are 3 star. But see me with my inspector.
You know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world. A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Hello and welcome. Now, just 5 years after commissioning the Chinua Achebe International Airport, the Anambra State government is moving ahead with plans to build a second airport. While the Soludo administration insists the project is critical to its long-term vision of transforming the state into an aviation and industrial hub, critics argue that another airport located barely 60 kilometers from the existing one is an expensive venture that does little to address the state's more pressing needs. The backlash is particularly striking because just 9 months ago, the state government denied reports that it plans to build an airport in Urumba North local government area. At the time, the Commissioner for Information Law, Mefo, dismissed the reports as speculation, explaining that although the proposed Anambra mixed-use industrial city, that's AMIC, would require major transport infrastructure, no decision had been made on whether to construct an airport or a railway. However, the government's position changed in June 2026 when Mefo announced that Governor Chukwuma Soludo had approved plans for a second airport as part of the administration's long-term economic strategy.
Feasibility studies, very extensive. It took well over a year. So as at the time people were talking about a second airport, there was no decision on it yet. The feasibility studies haven't been concluded. Nothing has returned to the Anambra State Executive Council. So no decision. And for us to read that a second airport was already agreed with them, and the feasibility study turned out not to be encouraging or positive, then we would have made a fool of ourselves.
So does Anambra State actually need a second airport at this time? I mean, you just commissioned one. You just commissioned one not long ago. Not even up to a year ago.
It's not an airport. It's not an airport. You know, that is where the misconception is coming from.
Okay.
This is not an airport. It's not just a second airport. It's an electropolis. An electropolis is a cluster of industries that is driven by aviation, with an airport as a central part of it.
So quick means there's still going to be an airport there. That's just, if an airport is a central part of it, it means there's an airport.
Wait, listen now, if you give me a moment, let me explain the difference between an airport and an electropolis. An electropolis is not an airport. It's a cluster of industries that, you know, is driven by aviation, by an airport. And the existing airport in Anambra cannot be converted into an electropolis because of the industries that are required to combine to yield up an electropolis. So when we talk about the second airport, we miss the point. We need to talk about an electropolis, which is exactly what Soludo is building. Let me try further distinction here.
Yeah.
You know, in the entire world, you have hundreds of airports, but you have only 80 electropolis in the whole world, only 80. And that of Anambra is likely to be perhaps the first in West Africa. So it is not an ordinary airport. I want you to look at it from that perspective. To understand what they...
I've just been looking up the word aerotropolis. At the core of an aerotropolis is an airport. So everything revolves around the airport. So the core infrastructure we're talking about here is still an airport. So there's still going to be an airport. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
There is going to be an airport. No. Don't confuse your viewers. It's not an airport. An electropolis is not an airport. Do you understand that?
The airport is the core of the aerotropolis.
Listen.
Okay.
If you want, unless you have...
No, go ahead. I'll wait and listen to you.
You have made up your mind on what the answers are.
Not exactly, sir.
And I have just told you that in the entire world, you have only 80 electropolis, only 80, whereas you have well over 1,000 airports in the world. So why don't you call the entire airports in the world electropolis? You don't. The electropolis that is being built in Anambra is a cluster of industries that will be driven by aviation. That is the important thing, the important point here. Now, let me also drive it down to the fact that the centrality of the Anambra electropolis is something that is very, very key. It's going to be a game changer because the electropolis will provide the most central airport in the entire Southeast with states like Cross River, Akwa Ibom, acting as catchment areas. This is very, very important. It's going to be the most centrally located airport in the Southeast, perhaps in the country, as a matter of fact. And it is going to serve an estimated population of well over 25 million people, going far beyond Anambra State.
Now, this state, sorry to cut you. Go on.
Ibom, part of Cross River will benefit, will have to use these electropolis as their exit corridor to come into their states and exit.
But these states, excuse me, Mr. Mefo, but these states you have mentioned, these states all have airports. They all have airports, probably with the exception of Abia State. These other states you have mentioned, Enugu has an airport. Cross River, as you have mentioned, has an airport. What is it called now? Akwa Ibom has a massive airport. So are they going to leave their airports and begin to patronize the Anambra airport?
You need to understand how such economics works, right? People follow proximity. People follow what we may call opportunity costs. The value. People are looking for value for their money. So if you have an airport in your state and it will take you an hour and a half to get to that airport, and it will take you maybe 40 to 50 minutes to get to another airport that is outside your state, which one will you follow? We did a feasibility study that took months that established all this before that decision to build the electropolis was taken.
Now, I remember you saying that, look, that's some months back now when this issue came up, when you denied that an airport was being contemplated. You said, look, a decision had not been taken whether it was going to be an airport or a railway system. What actually informed the decision now, the decision to jettison the idea of a railway, in place of an airport?
No, you didn't get what I said. I didn't say the electropolis will be an alternative to a railway system. The railway system is still there. The feasibility study for that has also been completed. It's funding that it's awaiting. Once we get the funds, that will that will take off. So it was not, the electropolis was never going to be an alternative to the railway system.
Now let me ask you.
I was talking about whether it will be.
What was?
Hello?
Don't you think with the current airports that you have, that probably, just as your critics have said, that you should have probably concentrated effort in improving what you have, the airport. It's a brand new airport that you have. You improve the facilities there, ensure that passenger traffic, the figures that we have between when that airport had just around 600,000 passengers and under 150,000, under 150 flights so far. So obviously you need to improve things, probably drive passenger traffic to that area and all of that. Don't you think that's what you should be concentrating on rather than expending money on another aviation project, so to speak?
No, it's not a is not the way to look at it, right? The airport in Anambra State is not neglected. Governor is pumping in money there to ensure that it gets to the international standard that it should have. That corrupted by the Electropolis. The Electropolis project is entirely a different economic venture. It is going to complement the Electropolis. Is not in any way going to affect the existing airport. The existing airport is there servicing the economy from its own perspective. The Electropolis is focusing essentially on a different economic trajectory. This point is very important. This is one. And number two, there is a document that was produced in the Chief Willie Obiano governorship. It's called Anambra Vision. In that Anambra Vision 2070, there is an express provision for a second airport, and that is what Soludo is implementing. So it's not the idea is not new. It has always been there in the Vision 2070.
The question
that is what. Can you wait a minute? Okay. Just one more minute. You know, Anambra is the second smallest state in Nigeria after Lagos, right? Now, Lagos is even expanding by reclaiming land from the ocean and so on and so forth. Anambra doesn't have that luxury. Our population is fast growing, in fact, exploding. What that means is that in a matter of 1 decade, it won't be up to 2 decades, we will not be able to find a land space to build a second airport. So the best time to bank that land and begin to develop it is now particularly. In fact, it's one of the driving reasons why the airport has to come now, because population is catching up with Anambra already.
But the question is, people would say, look, you have more pressing needs, and that, you know, I understand it's in the document.
There is no pressing need. There's no pressing need in Anambra that is abandoned at the expense of the Electropolis.
I'm just wondering whether the railway project would not have made much better sense at this time than this Electropolis. We have several airports across the country, but maybe just about 4 or 5 are actually viable and that are functional. And from the reports we have gathered from both NCAA, the FAA, and the various aviation agencies, between 2021 and now, passenger traffic has been dropping by 10% annually. And it's going to get worse because of the cost of, flight. Because the cost of flight definitely will not come down. And so it's really affecting passenger traffic. Very few Nigerians fly. Very few Anambrarians fly. I'm just wondering where you are going to get the passenger traffic from. It would have been a different situation if, for instance, you took on the railway project, because people argue that would make much impact, better impact than this Electropolis project, at this time at least.
Idea. This is very fundamental. It has gone up to 30% in completion, and the idea is in the next 1 to 2 years, it should be able to receive flights. The issue of viability was thoroughly investigated during the feasibility studies, and the return on that was very, very positive. That is why I started by telling you the estimated population the Electropolis would serve. And as long as it remains the catchment airport for 25 million people, 1% of that population will keep the airport going, I tell you. So it's not every airport that has the potentiality as the Electropolis. There was a very serious feasibility study that was carried out before that decision was taken. And don't forget, the reputation of the governor of Anambra State is at stake here. He is a foremost global economist. He knows what he is doing. And I just want, such a critics to give him a benefit of the doubt. He is not joking here. He knows what he is doing. That was why when I spoke about the airport the first time, I told us that it was just in the realm of a speculation. The Anambra State Executive Council meetings, very robust engagements, and the governor is the floor for people to give alternative viewpoints. And the convergence of opinion was that the airport, the electropolis will have to be driven and driven now. And I've given you the reasons. There are many more reasons even, but like I said, it was a very robust conversation, and more than an absolute majority, insisted that we should go on with the aviation, the new aviation project, which is the electropolis, because of its centrality in the new economic project and programs of the Soludo-led into Valley. One of the major enablers of Dubai as a commercial and the logistic hub is an electropolis. Dubai is one of the 80 you have electropolis in the world, and a lot. Memphis, so many others. India has one. Nigeria should have one at least, and people should be happy that Soludo is the one that is taking that bull by the horn.
So how much is the estimated cost of this project? Because we've seen a number of figures in the media, figures being bandied around. So how much is the cost of the project? How has it been financed?
I don't have it off cuff here. I will supply you those details.
But of course you would know.
What is doing now that nobody has tried in Nigeria. His budgeting process, his capital expenditure has never been less than 70% of the annual budget. 70%. In fact, the subsisting 2026 budget is 79 capital and only 21%.
Well, but the most important thing is to get the money. I mean, it's one thing to budget; it's another thing to actually generate the revenue.
Oh yeah,
you need.
That's it. Of course, if you need to come to Anambra and see transformations that are going on across the board. But I said that the electropolis has not in any way interrupted the transformational economic development of the state. 5 dual carriageways are going on, because you were talking about railway, but nobody even knows that as we speak now, we are going on with 5 dual carriageways in Anambra, creating the Anambra Beltway. Of course, railway will join eventually. Electropolis is ongoing. And Anambra is transforming. The idea is to prepare Anambra as a mega city, one big mega city. Anambra is between 8 and 9 million persons now, people now. So it means that in the next 2 to 3 years, Anambra must have crossed a 10 million population. You need to prepare this
system at this time would have made much better sense.
And that is why I told you.
Deal with
that
this
is why
population.
I told you that a railway system is coming. The feasibility study has been completed. Funds is what is awaiting. It's awaiting funding, and it is going to come. Government spent a lot of money doing the feasibility studies for the railway. This is because it will take up to the railway will take up to $1.6 billion, right? So a special kind of funding will have to be sought for it. The electropolis wouldn't cost.
You should know.
Yes, you know, I should know, yes. And that is why I told you I don't have all the facts yet. And I will, and I'll get back to you on them.
All right, Mr. Mefo, thank you very much for coming on the program and sharing your thoughts with us. It's always exciting talking. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's do it again.
Yes, we'll definitely do it again. Maybe when the railway project is started, we'll come back to talk about it. And of course, we'll still come back.
Yes.
We'll definitely come back to this issue when you get figures, you know, the cost and all of that. So we'll come back to it, definitely.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was Mr. Lome, for the Commissioner for Information, Anambra State in Southeast Nigeria. Well, that's how much we can take on the program. I'll see you next time.